Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as something ours, but hey, it's something. So, this episode's topic is going to be a little bit interesting, but, it's just a precaution so that you don't fall in the same trap that I just so happened to fall under for a little bit. Okay, so, with the housekeeping out of the way, let's get right into the news. First of all, we're going to talk about something that is very, very local. Not local to me because I don't live in this town, but I live in the state that this town is in, so it's an interesting debacle. In historic move, North Carolina City approves reparations for black residents. Asheville, NC, in an extraordinary move, the Asheville City Council has apologized for North Carolina City's role in slavery, discrimination, and denial of basic liberties to black residents, and voted to provide reparations to them and their descendants. The 7-0 vote came the night of July 14th. Hundreds of years of black blood spilled that basically fills the cup that we drink from today, said Councilman Keith Young, one of two African-American members of the body, and the measure's chief proponent. It is simply not enough to remove statues. Black people in this country are dealing with issues that are systemic in nature. The unanimously passed resolution does not mandate direct payments. Instead, it will make investments in areas where black residents face disparities. I see. So, technically, it ain't exactly reparations. But I get the idea. It's good to tackle, systemic racism, especially considering North Carolina. Remember, we're a southern state. Just because we're not, that other Carolina doesn't mean that North Carolina was any better. We're slightly better, but remember, there was a town called Wilmington that literally massacred pretty much all of their black residents. That's a 100% thing that happened. Look it up. There was like a Wilmington massacre. Okay, so overall, this is a good resolution, and it makes sense to come from Asheville. Asheville's, the super liberal place in North Carolina. They were like the people who voted for Kucinich. I think they voted for Sanders in the 2020 primary, and they elected an atheist, Cecil Bothwell, so it makes sense that they would, do all this. Okay, so on the same route of North Carolina, let's talk about our good old boy, Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis on Tuesday, in a telephone town hall with constituents, said that he was concerned that Hispanics make up a high percentage of COVID cases in his state, and then attributed this to Hispanics not wearing the mask and not socially distancing as much as the rest of the population. Just wear the mask out of respect, and I will tell you, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a statistician, but one of the concerns we've had more recently is that the Hispanic population now constituencies about 44% of positive cases. And we do have some concerns that in the Hispanic population, we have seen less consistent adherence to social distancing and wearing a mask. This is the funny part. The question doesn't mention Hispanics at all. He literally just says, look, I'm just saying, buddies. The Mexicans, they do the social distancing. They don't do social distancing enough, bro. Funny. You see, I haven't seen that many videos online of, Hispanics, going against the social distancing. What I have seen is a lot more videos of white people doing this. Quite a few white people known as Karens have been doing this. I'm just saying. So yeah, Tillis, I don't know what his game is. Maybe he's just trying to rile up his base. Maybe he's just being stupid because he knows he's on his way out. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, the next story is coming from another swing state, Florida. Supreme Court says Florida can enforce a law limiting ex-felons who owe fines from voting. The Supreme Court on Thursday said Florida can enforce a law barring ex-felons from voting if they still owe court fines or fees that they are unable to pay associated with their convictions. The unsigned order likely means the law will be in effect for the November election, although the court did not declare the law to be unconstitutional or limit outgoing court challenges. Liberal Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Elena Kagan dissented. The court's order prevents thousands of otherwise eligible voters from participating in Florida's primary election simply because they are poor, Sotomayor wrote in the dissent. The court's inaction continues a trend of condoning disenfranchisement, she added. As many people quickly point out, this is a poll tax. This is pretty much a poll tax. Because, remember, here's the thing. This affects poor felons who make up the majority of poor felons, African Americans. They're the people who make up the majority of poor felons. African Americans. And these aren't even just normal, big bad felonies. These are cases of like marijuana charges and such. It's definitely a not so good situation for, African Americans who are charged with a marijuana thing. And this is the thing. It's always what these disenfranchisement laws are about. Because think about it logistically, as I stated before. Give me a logistic reason why you wouldn't want felons to vote. Think about it. Oh, felons shouldn't be allowed to vote. Okay, but what does that necessarily do? What do you think that's going to curb felons from voting? From committing a crime. It's going to be I was going to murder this person, but then I wouldn't be able to vote for Alan Grayson, so I guess I'm going to have to not kill him today. And what do you think the felon's going to do with his voting power? You think he's going to vote in some sort of super evil mastermind criminal? Well, no. He's going to vote for whatever the hell he wants. The only reason that this is the case is because a majority of felons are African American. That's the only reason why this would be a thing. If a majority of felons were white, or if they didn't make it so that there would be a systemic racism problem in our criminal justice system, there wouldn't be any of these laws. It's just absolutely stupid. It's literally the only reason why it's the case. Now, of course, the Democrats do actually acknowledge this to an extent. That's because they realize the majority of felons would probably lean Democratic in at least their voting records. This, like pretty much everything else, has become a partisan game. It's always a partisan game. It's also the reason why states like Puerto Rico, not even states, places like Puerto Rico and DC don't become states. Because it's going to add 4 new Democratic senators, and the GOP don't want that. Things that just make sense to do, it's a political issue. Oh, we need to enact stricter carbon emissions so that we can live. No, but that's a partisan issue. I don't get it. I do get it because, corporate lobbyists and such. But it's just, it could also just be normal stupidity, but in this particular instance, this should be just a no-brainer. Okay, so the next story is a compilation of the Senate Democrats machine. You see, the Senate Democrats machine spent $15 million to destroy progressive primary candidates. Senate Democrats' political machines have spent more than $15 million to help more moderate Senate candidates defeat their progressive primary challenges in the 2020 election cycle. Now, one of the first things that they actually explain is this. While the DSCC's chair, Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, said last year the party would be supporting progressive incumbent Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey if he faced a primary challenger, he hasn't seen any outside help yet from the DSCC or the SMP in his tough battle with Joseph Kennedy III. The SMP is the Senate Majority PAC, a super PAC funded by labor unions, corporate interests, and Wall Street billionaires. Candidates endorsed by Chuck Schumer and DSCC. Senate Majority PAC is pretty much a Democratic PAC. You see, the SMP spent $1 million to boost Hickenlooper against Andrew Romanov. In North Carolina, the SMP funded Carolina Blue, a super PAC that spent $4.5 million to help Cal Cunningham beat Erica Smith. SMP spent nearly $7 million to promote Theresa Greenfield. The SMP spent more than $2 million in Maine to help promote Sarah Gideon. They received donations from, of course, the typical liberal evil person, George Soros, who spent, $8.5 million to fund the SMP. And the SMP, an affiliated group of the SMP, received $450,000 from CVS Health and $300,000 from the American Healthcare Association. So you can tell why a lot of these people really want to fund these guys, because, believe it or not, all the people that they've endorsed, they're actively giving money to, like Cal Cunningham and Sarah Gideon and John Hickenlooper. They're all not Medicare for All supporters. Of course, that's why the Democratic Party likes them so much. Every time they can find someone who could try and keep a progressive out, they will. The only difference is that they weren't really able to find one in certain Senate seats in time, like West Virginia. And you can tell they're actually going so far as to withhold support for Ed Markey. They're endorsing Ed Markey, but where's the support? I don't see it. He needs help. He's getting the tough primary challenger. Where's his help? Where's his money? Of course, they're not going to really help him too much. Okay, so next story. Federal law enforcement use unmarked vehicles to grab protesters off of Portland streets. In the early hours of July 15th, after a night spent protesting in Monmouth County Justice Center in Marco Hatfield Federal Courthouse, Mark Pettibone and his friend Connor O'Shea decided to head home. It had been a calm night, no police showed up. But then, this happened. They bumped into a group of people who warned them that people in camouflage were driving around an area in unmarked minivans and grabbing people off the streets. They had barely made it half a block when an unmarked minivan pulled up in front of them. I see guys in camo, O'Shea said. 4 or 5 of them popped out, opened the door, and it was like, oh shit, I don't know who you are or what you want with us. Federal law enforcement officers have been using unmarked vehicles to drive around downtown Portland and detain protesters since at least July 14th. Personal accounts and multiple videos posted online show the officers driving up to people, detaining individuals with no explanation of why they're being arrested, and driving off. The tactic appears to be another escalation in federal force deployed in Portland city streets, as federal officials and President Donald Trump have said that they plan to quell nightly protests outside the federal courthouses and Monmouth County Justice Center that have been lasted more than 6 weeks. Yeah, remember that whole Donald Trump fascism thing? That people were everybody was saying oh, Donald Trump is literally Hitler. And then, people were like, well, he's not technically literally Hitler. He's not even really a fascist, to be honest. He's just got fascist tendencies. Technically, neither of them are wrong in this particular instance. Now, like I said, is he a fascist, literally? No, but let's explain this. You can't walk in with the fascism guns ablazing. You gotta ease into it. It all started with the Tea Party. They hate Obama. They think they're racist against him. Then you gotta go into the Trump and the right-wing populism and all that junk. You gotta ease into the fascism. And then when people are simply minded with the fascism tendencies, then you can lead them in with the real deal. So, like, Trump, he's not the fascist, but he's like the red pill to the fascist. Like, there he is. There's the fascies. I'm the cool guy. I'm not a fascist, but that guy, then the guy from next to me can be if you want him to be. And here's the thing: there are people who are like legitimately, like, okay with this. I mean, there are some people that are literally legitimately okay with this. They're like, literally anybody with a brain realizes no matter where you go, no matter what political ideology you're supposed to be, this is supposed to be a bad thing. You know, police officers should not just randomly walk up to people and detain them for no reason. You know, that's a bad thing. Now, I mean, if you're a fascist, then technically you're sitting there jerking off to this thought, but, you know, I'm not, so I think it's a bad thing. So yeah, this is a bad precedent, and we should 100% disavow this, and it's a shame that the Democrats wasted their one impeachment thing on Russiagate, because they really could be, it would be useful if they did that with this. This would have a bit of a precedent, I'm just saying. Okay, so now we're on to a sad story. This is a thing that just happened. John Lewis, civil rights icon and longtime congressman, dies. John Lewis, who went from being the youngest leader of the 1963 March on Washington to a long-serving congressman from Georgia and icon of the civil rights movement, died Friday. He was 80. In December 2019, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. As leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee, Lewis was a committed participant in some of the key moments of the movement: the original freedom rider in 1961, a principal speaker at the March on Washington in 1963, and one of those brutally clubbed during the 1965 March on Selma. Through it all, he has faced taunts, beatings, and dozens of arrests. In the face of what John considered the evils of segregation, he was fearless, a longtime SNCC activist Cortland Cox. In his middle years, he was in Congress and sometimes referred to it as its conscience. Tributes poured in late Friday night from across the political spectrum, with Democrats and Republicans offering condolences for Lewis's passing. Okay. Lewis, everybody's, talking about the good things about John Lewis. And yes, he's done good things. As I said before, he was a civil rights protester. He was like a leader during the civil rights movement. That is a good thing. Lewis has also been a multiple-time co-sponsor of the Medicare for All bill. Like, throughout his entire tenure in Congress, he, supported it. That's a good thing. He opposed NAFTA. He, was a bit of a progressive kind of guy in Congress, He seemed, he had a decent record on some issues and had some mixed record on some other issues. But I think with all the talk about him, of all the praise going on, I have to be a contrarian, and, it can't all be positive, can it? First, I'll start with the most, recent-ish thing. One thing that is common for Lewis to have done was endorse, some more establishment favorite types. He endorsed Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama in 2008. He also endorsed, Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders in 2016. We'll get to that again. He endorsed Walter Mondale over Jesse Jackson. He endorsed Jesse Jackson the second time. He endorsed Kerry over everyone else. Including some of his allies in the civil rights movement, like Al Sharpton. He was one of those people who endorsed Joe Kennedy III. Some of the endorsements, I guess I'll give the benefit of the doubt, like Michael Blake. Michael Blake, he obviously wasn't the progressive in that race, but he was, the African-American-ish choice for a candidate. But, like, as you can see, some of his endorsements, it doesn't necessarily match up with some of his rhetoric and such. But one of the issues with one of those endorsements was very particular. When he endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, he made a statement that was legitimately like, what? Like, here's what he said about Bernie Sanders' role in the civil rights movement. To be very frank, I never saw him. I have never met him. I have chaired the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee for 3 years, from 1963 to 1966. I was involved with sit-ins in the Freedom Rides, the March on Washington, the March from Selma to Montgomery, but I met Hillary Clinton. Now you might say, I mean, what in particular is that issue thing? You see, he was giving a little bit of a... He was trying to imply that Bernie Sanders was lying about his civil rights record. Like, they were like, oh, Bernie Sanders was in the civil rights movement. And he's like, well, I didn't see him. I didn't see him at all. And it's like, well, dude, there's a lot of people in the civil rights movement. You know, you weren't the only one. And then this got many people to attack him. Like, Neil Abercrombie said, like, dude, what the F, dude? What the F, dude? And here's what it said. He said, and then he clarified his statement saying, during the late 50s and 60s, when I was more engaged, Sanders was not there. I did not see him around. I have never seen him in the South, but if he was there, if he was involved someplace, I was not aware of it. Gee! The guy who was mostly doing things in the North? And you were in the South and you never saw each other? Impossible. Like, you see the thing, he was trying to imply that Bernie didn't do it, but then give like a half-assed remark at later and like, oh no, what I meant to say was, and it's like, dude, come on, that's a bad thing, John, that was a bad thing you did there. Okay, and the second thing is, when I was like doing more research on today, like, here's what he did. It was when he first ran for Congress. See, when he first ran for Congress, he ran against State Senator Julian Bond, who was also a civil rights leader. Now you might say, why did John Lewis feel in particular run against Julian Bond? I don't know. He never really specified. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there. The point is, both of them at one point ran, and they made it to a runoff. The runoff is where things got nasty. See, Julian Bond, he was endorsed by like the Democratic Party heads in Georgia. They were like, look, Julian, he's got more experience in politics. You know, John, you gotta do, like, I mean, it's not just, it doesn't matter. Julian's probably the best bet. Now it's a mixed record. I guess you could say it's a bit bad. That's a bit interesting. Like, don't try to silence primary challengers. But I don't think necessarily try to silence him. But it was made clear that Julian was kind of the favorite to win. Then John Lewis decided to do something a little interesting. He joined in with some, big rumor and claimed that Julian Bond had used cocaine and demanded Julian Bond take a drug test. And it was like, when I took the test and I passed, why don't you take the test? And Julian Bond kept saying, like, dude, I'm not taking the test because this is trivializing the issue of drugs. Why are you doing this to me? And then, Lewis ended up winning, but it was because he had won white liberals. Because of the two, Lewis was seen as the less radical one. Because if I remember correctly, I don't know if he was like pro-Vietnam War, like pro-leaving the Vietnam War as Julian Bond was. Julian Bond, they literally tried to refuse to seat him because he was against the Vietnam War from the beginning. Now, it seems at one point they moved past it, but it's definitely like John, not everything is a shining light among John, but, again, I'm not taking away all the good that he did. He did good, but he also did some bad, let's be real. Speaking of an African-American that did some bad, let's move on to one that did even more bad things with the smaller candidate of the day and the news story. Remember my second episode of the podcast? Well, let me just pull up a clip from that podcast. It was in response to me talking about 2020 predictions and candidates that were running. Now we're on independent/other. This is where I'm going to put all the independents and other, smaller parties. First, we have Kanye West, rapper, singer, and entrepreneur. Wow, my audio was terrible back then, and it still is now, but it's slightly better. Yes, Kanye West has finally decided to run for president for 2020. Now, technically, you might say, this is kind of old news, to be honest. Well, you see, I actually wanted to do a thing called Wait and See If He's Serious. And he's technically more serious than he's been before, so, worth covering. I tried to learn my lesson from Jesse Ventura and Jason Amash, and actually wait until there's actually things going on. And he has followed the FEC, he's gotten on the ballot in Oklahoma, looks serious to me. If he drops out in 2 weeks, sucks, but I at least had somewhat reason to actually cover him. He's running under the birthday party, and his running mate is a preacher called Michelle Tidball, and he's working to get on the ballot in other states like, South Carolina, even though the deadline is passed. Kanye was getting into some interesting trouble because he was taking a bit more of a conservative Hollywood route. So here's his official platform for 2020. He's actually tried to give a somewhat interesting platform. He spoke out against abortion, thou shalt not kill. He's pro-life because I'm pro-life because I follow the words of the Bible, and has expressed his belief that Planned Parenthood has been placed inside cities by white supremacists to do the devil's work, and that abortion is black genocide. Well, if that was the case, then why aren't the Republicans openly for abortion? I'm just saying. He said that he told the people to stop focusing on racism. He did not believe in Black Lives Matter. It said that just because he supported Trump does not mean that he did not believe in Black Lives Matter. He paid off George Floyd's college tuition, which is cool. He said that one of his priorities would be to end police brutality, but also said that police are people too. He said that he opposed the death penalty. Thou shalt not kill. He said that he hates vaccines. What's his other platforms? He and this is funny. He actually said they said what is your opinion on foreign policy? He's I'll put good foreign policy. I'll make good foreign policy. He supports the Second Amendment, and he really hates welfare. He's in the belief that the Democratic Party is using welfare to get the black people to vote for them. Maybe they want to vote for the Democrats because the Democrats have been a little bit nicer to them. I'm just saying. Now, here's the thing. Apparently, they were saying that he dropped out at one point, but apparently that's not the case. And they even went so far, and I think some of his family members have actually stated that he is, this is actually a bipolar episode, and that they're worried about him. But, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so we're going to move on to the main topic of this video, which is going to be another candidate. Joanne Marie Jorgensen, the Libertarian Party presidential candidate. Now, why am I talking about Jo Jorgensen? Well, you see, she is a candidate that is running for president, so she deserves coverage, but she's also getting a lot of confusion. There seems to be a lot of confusion and a lot of misconstruingness about who Jo Jorgensen is and, what she stands for. And it kind of stems from both, of course, her lack of coverage. It also stems from, just, dissatisfaction with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, to the point where literally anybody else is seen as a more appealing option. And the thing is, one of the big things that of contention is a little bit about, is she viable for lefties? We need to be crystal clear about who she is, what her platform is, and what exactly she would offer people on the left. The answer is actually not that much. Now, this is a similar situation with something that happened to me when I was, Democrats screwed Bernie Sanders out of the, Democratic nomination. So I'm like, hey, I'm mad. So in an effort to be screw you to the two-party system, I kind of was like, Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, they seem pretty lit, bro. And I especially like Gary Johnson because, Gary Johnson, he had the advantage of actually getting high enough in the polls where it's he might actually make it into the debates. But the thing is, like with Gary Johnson, Joe Jorgensen, we need to be crystal clear about who she is. She's a libertarian, but it seems that she's running on a similar idea with Gary Johnson. She's trying to be a Cosmotarian. What's a Cosmotarian, you may ask? A Cosmotarian is a libertarian who hides their more radical ideas behind the more well-liked versions of the Libertarian Party platform. For example, Gary Johnson did not advocate every single day about the fact that he wanted to eliminate the Department of Education. What he did campaign on was that he wanted to end our interventionist regime change wars, that he wanted to legalize marijuana, that he didn't believe in the death penalty, because he wanted to expand his appeal. He didn't want people to see the fact that he wanted to make himself known as not as a radical libertarian, but as a person who could appeal to normal people who aren't radical libertarians, which actually led him to have contentions with his own party, which Joe Jorgensen has also had. During the Libertarian Party convention, Gary Johnson said that he believed that the 1964 Civil Rights Act should have been signed into law. He was booed at the convention. During a Libertarian Party debate, Austin Peterson told Gary Johnson that it is okay for people to discriminate and that the Libertarian Party should not try to impose that bakers make cakes for gay couples, whereas Gary Johnson was trying to say, the Libertarian Party, we can't say that we're the party of the LGBT, that we can't say we're allies to the LGBT community, while also denying them this right. This is discrimination. The Libertarian Party needs to take up their mantle and actually lead ourselves to face the new issues of the LGBT community. Jo Jorgensen faced the exact same thing. She said, we can no longer just be not racist, we have to be anti-racist. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. All of her replies and retweet with comments, except for mine, were libertarians saying stuff like, oh, now we know you support a Marxist organization. Why are you supporting Marxism? What? Libertarians believe that we should have the freedom to discriminate. What are you talking about? Good thing you don't earn my vote in 2020. We need to find another pro-liberty candidate. Libertarian Party should disqualify her. This is the stuff that they were saying, and that's kind of broadening her appeal some more. But here's the thing. We need to remember who Jo Jorgensen is. Let's look at her platform. Let's explain her platform. Now, of course, we all know again, the racist war on drugs. She hates the war on drugs. But here's another piece of her platform. She wants people to opt out of Social Security. Okay, that's not necessarily a good thing. Jo Jorgensen favors nuclear power plants to reduce CO2 emissions, and she supports removing subsidies of all forms of energy production, allowing emissions-free nuclear power, a change to compete the level of field, and also supports the use of hydraulic fracking. She supports free market healthcare over the idea of a single-payer system. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? No. Should children be vaccinated for preventable diseases? No. And here's a topical one. This is a topical issue, so this is good. She has stated that the government's response to COVID-19 is, quote, the biggest assault on our liberties in our lifetime because of both restrictions on individual behavior such as stay-at-home orders as well as corporate bailouts, which she sees as antithetical to free market principles and biased towards the well-connected. That second one isn't that bad, to be honest. I'll be fair. But she's opposing that from a different issue, free market issues. She says no bailouts at all for anybody. That would probably be her, idea. She might have a different opinion. But that's the thing about libertarians. They always say, we hate the bailouts, but, they always say, they hate the big government bailouts, but they oppose it from a different viewpoint. They oppose it from, crony capitalism. It's crony capitalism. No, real capitalism would let these industries die. But think about it. She's saying that the stay-at-home orders are bad. She even went so far as to say that she would not do them. If she were president right now, she would not do them. These aren't necessarily good issues. You shouldn't be supporting George Jorgensen. George Jorgensen does not represent your values. And if you were campaigning for George Jorgensen, you are not a leftist. Now here's the thing. That would be crystal clear. But the problem is, it's not necessarily that crystal clear because of one thing. Her VP, Spike Cohen, who is a libertarian socialist, who was running as Vermin Supreme's running mate. And Vermin Supreme, he ran, I guess, a libertarian socialist campaign. Everybody was getting all riled up about Vermin Supreme's campaign, but it was really guys, but he's not running on these issues that you like. They were talking about oh, we like how Vermin Supreme's a mutualist and a libertarian socialist and blah blah blah. It's but guys, he's not running on those issues. He's not. He's running on mandatory toothbrushing. You don't understand. These are literally the issues that he's running on. He may have I think, to be fair, maybe he did shift at one point during his campaign. He wasn't wearing the boot during the Libertarian Party National Convention, apparently. He was at the end, but at the beginning, during his during his speech where he was trying to get in the Libertarian Party nomination, he was dressed all formal. He had his beard tucked into his shirt. He didn't have the boot on his head, and he was trying to be a bit more serious-minded. I'll be fair. Maybe he did change his mind on some things. But for the most part, he wasn't campaigning on these libertarian left issues. He was campaigning as a satirical candidate who went so far as to even go there's a reason why I'm running this pretty much to just do an FU to the two-party system. That's what I want us all to do. They consider our politics are considered a joke, so might as well make a joke back. Now, again, this is sort of another issue. Is that a lot of people are they're painting Joe Jorgensen as a libertarian leftist, when, as I just stated before, no, not at all. None of these issues that she has stood for are libertarian leftist. Now, and that also kind of might lead to a bigger problem, because a lot of libertarian leftists really want to change the Libertarian Party, but it's happening even slower than it is in the Democratic Party of Soch Dems and progressives trying to change the Dem Party. Because the Libertarian Party, unlike the Democrats that do have shifting ideologies, the Libertarian Party, they've been pretty crystal clear about what their ideologies are okay and what ideologies are bad. What is pretty much always considered to be okay is something on the libertarian right side of the spectrum. It's okay to be classical liberal and be part of the Libertarian Party. It's okay to be an anarcho-capitalist and be part of the Libertarian Party. It's okay to be a Republican-leaning libertarian. It's okay to just be a Republican. It's okay to be a moderate. It's okay as long as you are not one of those big government bad people, and it just so happens leftists are seen as those big government people. At least until the Libertarian Party has shifted entirely its ideology, you're not going to be seeing the Libertarian Party be that good. I mean, there are individual Libertarian socialists that, are good. Charlotte Job. I endorsed her like a little bit ago. Apparently some Libertarian socialists managed to get somewhat close to the top position, but not quite. But again, this doesn't necessarily translate to their candidate, because Jo Jorgensen, as I said before, is not a libertarian leftist. She's just your average American libertarian, which, stole this term from an anarcho-communist. I don't know why they took that term, because liberty and, pretty much an Ayn Rand fans that just really like the term liberty. So yeah, I really don't think it is in left's best interest at all to vote Jo Jorgensen. At all. Now, here's the thing. If you are trying to vote for Jo Jorgensen, you're not a leftist. And I know there's someone involved in the Howard Grisham Hawkins controversy that has been hey, I want to vote for Jo Jorgensen over Howard. He's not a leftist, though. Okay. So that's all I gotta say on this topic. No Jorgensen. Haha. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, join my Discord, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.